Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and it looks like the luck of the Irish is with all of you, but not with Arcade1Up and their Arcade1Up Street Fighter 2 Big Blue Arcade cabinet. So what's really interesting is just a bit over a week ago, Arcade1Up sent out a firmware update where they tried to fix the audio issues on some of these games, add a little bit more bass and a little less treble, right? And we find out too that they also wanted to add some scan lines to these games. And of course, the scan lines that they chose are unfortunately too dark, at least in my opinion. Now, keep in mind too, that's probably going to be subjective with all of you out there. Some of you might like, you know, really dark scan lines, or maybe thinner scan lines, or maybe a mixture of horizontal, vertical scan lines, etc. What's really nice about, we have to be honest, what's really nice about some of the other arcade companies like AtGames and iArcade, when they've added scan lines, they've given you the ability to pick and choose, like, do you want horizontal, vertical, or a mix and mash? I mean, hell, I think the iArcade has like 20 kinds of scan lines that you can choose from. If you like scan lines, they have an option you're probably going to like. Arcade1Up is adding scan lines, but they're only giving people one option. Now, in that menu where you can add scan lines, Arcade1Up, if you can add one scan line option, try a few. If you figured out how to do a firmware update where you can push out multiple scan lines to machines, or even just one scan line, let's get a few more options in there. Let us as owners decide, hey, we want them turned off, or hey, I like this one, or hey, I like that one, or hey, I like this one. Why does it only have to be one, and why is the one they picked just way too dark? But besides the scan lines not being the best update, they unfortunately messed up the audio system on a couple of the games. Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, which is the title marquee game, the game that is played the most online on this particular arcade cabinet. These games, unfortunately, the audio was terrible. Check out B Kong's video. I have a link to it below where he showed the audio. So then, so here I'm like, okay, it's going to be 2 months before this gets fixed. Well, Arcade1Up must have gotten that pressure from the community, like, hey man, we got to get this fixed for everybody, like ASAP. And they pushed out another firmware update, so I updated the firmware, and sure enough, it fixed the audio issues, right? I got scan lines now, just one option, which doesn't look that great. As well as they added, they fixed the sound issues on the Street Fighter games. So that's really, really cool. But now check this out. Now, if you go to launch the Capcom sports games in local mode, because when you go to launch games, it says, do you want to play local or do you want to play online? If you select online, it'll let the game launch and you're able to play the game online. But if you want to play a local game by yourself, no online, I don't want people jumping in and bugging me. I just want to play here by myself or with a friend if you're using two-player controls. It just kicks you out of the game. It just won't even launch. It just kicks you right out. Now, I understand with technology, stuff like this happens. You release a firmware update, and when that firmware update comes out, sometimes you unintentionally break something else or you miss testing something else. I totally get that. And when it comes to like arcade machines that have hundreds of games on them, I can understand how maybe one or two games might have accidentally got messed up, but this cabinet's got 12 games. 12 games. That's it. 12 games. You're telling me you can't sit there for 30, 35 minutes, launch all 12 games, make sure all games launch, as well as launch them in both local and online modes, and make sure they launch in your test environment before releasing this game? Come on now. Absolutely silly in my opinion. Now, we all know, I'm pretty sure Arcade1Up is aware of this already, and I'm sure they're going to work on another fix. I would expect them, hopefully within the next week, hopefully to push out another patch update. But this is just a silly snafu in my opinion. And Arcade1Up, you know, on behalf of the community, we would love for you to continue to update these cabinets. The whole point of us pushing Arcade1Up to give us Wi-Fi enabled cabinets is for them to push out updates, give us additional features if those features weren't included at launch. You know, listen to community feedback, change what needs to be changed, fix whatever needs to be patched, and all that kinds of stuff. That's why we push for these updates. But if you're going to do them for us, Arcade1Up, the same thing goes to you, the same pressure that we put on these other companies to not mess up firmwares. that same thing goes to you for these over-the-air updates, especially when we're forced to update, because it literally tells you if you do not accept this update, your machine will have performance issues, right? Whereas some of the other brands out there give you an option to update. You can sit on a different firmware if you choose to. So, same rules apply for everybody. Please double check quality control. Make sure you test all the games, especially if these cabinets only have 3, 5, 8, 12, or 14 games on them. Please test them all before pushing out these firmware updates. I'm sure myself and everyone else who collects these beautiful home arcades would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And do us a favor, please fix Capcom Sports. It's one of the few games on this cabinet I'm actually good at, and I would like to play it in local mode, because if I go online, I'm going to get my butt kicked like I do in Street Fighter. I'm going to lose my goatee again. I'm going to end up having to shave my head, my eyebrows, who knows what else. It's nuts, man. So please fix this game. We'd greatly appreciate it. Do me a favor, guys. If you agree with me, give us a thumbs up on the way out. And as always, my dudes, thank you for subscribing.